would like to call to order a regular meeting of the Batavia Board of Education, Tuesday, November 21st, 2017. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Bailey Barr. Blakely.
Here.
Drummond.
Here.
Dryden.
Here.
Gaspar.
Here.
Locke.
Here.
Lowe.
Here.
All right, and Mr. Lowe, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I guess I will.
With all that notice, I gave you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's your commanding ability to roll ahead.
You threw me way off.
Dr. Hitchens, are there any items to be removed from or added to the agenda?
Nothing to be removed, but as you can see, we have lots to celebrate tonight. We're going to get to that in just 1 second. And then after celebrating successes, when we get to the comments, the board does want the opportunity to talk during that section of the agenda because they have lots of committee updates that they want to share, and sometimes we have a bigger audience at the beginning of the meeting than we do at the end of the meeting. So the board will be moving their comments to the beginning, your committee comments, any committee updates that you feel like sharing at that time. And then if you want, I think Kathy said that there would be time at the end for just general comments, but the beginning of the meeting would be for committee comments.
Does that work? You guys got that? Everyone's good? Alrighty, then I am very excited to start with, I would like to invite BHS freshman Robert Finch, who was a gold medalist at the Special Olympics, and he is going to be joined by Carrie Rue and math teacher and football coach Michael Theriot. So I'd like to invite you all up.
I'm very excited and honored to stand up here with Coach T and the freshman football team to honor Robert Finch. He has been a student in Batavia. Actually, I've known him, I think, since 4th grade. So when Coach T started calling him Rob, I realized that he's no longer in elementary school, and he actually is in high school now and grown up. And we're very excited to honor his gold medal this evening. And we're going to let Coach T talk a little bit about what he has done as well this fall to help the football program and all these guys.
So Rob this year was our freshman football manager, and when we heard about his gold medal in the volleyball, we really weren't surprised. Every day at practice, he's there playing catch with the guys, gets everything ready for practice. So me and Coach Blake don't have to. But he's playing catch, he's running around, making sure the guys sprint to the ball. One of his favorite things to do is hit the tackling dummies at the end of practice, right guys? All right, yeah. So really his athleticism, we saw that. So this was really kind of cool to hear about. Really though, the thing that we were most impressed though as coaches was his excitement and his commitment to the team. He never missed a practice. He was always there with the team, didn't miss a team activity, a game, and was always there excited. And that was kind of the biggest thing. He loves football, and it was cool to see that when some of the guys were down. Rob was there excited and happy about football. So it was a contagious enthusiasm with that, and it was kind of a special thing for us to have and to be part of the Batavia football family. So from all the guys, I want to say congrats, Rob, and we're looking for you to do big things in basketball now. So,
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
thank you, guys.
All right. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Tim McDermott up, and he's going to tell us about AGS students podcasting.
Well, good evening. Just wanted to, I'm very excited to bring 3 of our students with me this evening. I have Charlotte, Nate, and Tommy. And these guys have been actually the ones doing the podcasting. So a few weeks ago, we wanted to build on what we've been doing at AGS with our kids hosting our Twitter account and sharing their stories, what's happening at AGS, and the things that interest them. So we launched a podcast. So this is a student-run podcast. We have students that are hosts, and then we have students who go out and are reporters, and then they sit around the table and record their podcast on a weekly basis. So each of them are going to share what they enjoyed about that experience, and then we have our latest episode that we're going to play for you as well. We are on iTunes, so you can subscribe to the AGS News Podcast on iTunes and catch all of our weekly episodes as well. So Tommy, you want to share what you learned and what you enjoyed?
I really enjoyed learning about what other classes did, because then I could learn more than just what my class taught me. And that was fun.
Charlotte, would you like to share what you enjoyed about the experience?
I liked figuring out what everyone's perspective of it was and kind of exploring deeply into the subject a little bit more.
And Nate, how about you, buddy?
I enjoyed being able to talk and do something different.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Nate and Tommy and Charlotte were all reporters. Nate reported on our classroom meetings. Charlotte talked about a field trip to the fourth grade went on, and then Tommy talked about what we did for World Kindness Day.
Hello, and welcome to AGS's third podcast. My name is Cece Day, and this is Macy Masick. Today, we have some 5th grade students that are going to share their story. Today, Tom is going to share his story about World Kindness Day. Hi, I'm Tommy, and my class participated in World Kindness Day by helping our 1st grade buddies and then making cards for them. This week, I wanted to find out what other classes did for World Kindness Day. Mrs. Green said that her class made cards for the 5th grade buddies, and Mrs. Toole's class decorated bookmarks and also made posters about kindness with the help of Mr. Wyatt's class. Mrs. Simmons and Mrs. Stewart's class played games together. Teachers talked about how rocking the cape impacts their class by reminding students about ways to be kind when they aren't showing us. It impacts classes to make posters about it, and finally, it gets kids and parents involved in being kind. I found one class in particular should get recognized. Mrs. Riccelli's class. They did just as many things to get their teachers as well as their mentors. They showed kindness by getting together with their buddies and reading a book about being kind and hiding notes for their teacher, which brightened her day. Once again, this is Tommy. Have a great day. Great story, Tommy. I like how you're helping the environment by spreading kindness. Now, Lindsay Fehrenbacher will be sharing her story about Thanksgiving.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Fehrenbacher, and have you ever wondered what students and teachers do for Thanksgiving? This week I had a chance to talk to kids and teachers about Thanksgiving. Students shared their favorite food was turkey, and their favorite things to do on Thanksgiving are spending time with their family and watching football. Teachers at AGS will be spending their Thanksgiving making dinner for their families and hanging out with extended family. Cece, Macy, and Tommy, how will you spend your Thanksgiving?
Well, Lindsay, I'm going to my grandma's house.
My family's hosting Thanksgiving this year.
Lindsay, that was so cool that you got to interview people about Thanksgiving. I'm going to Florida with my family. Here is a friendly reminder to show guts in hallways, especially during arrival and dismissal. That means to show silent walking, keep hands and feet to self, stick to the right side and make straight lines. Reminder that we only have 2 days of school next week. Enjoy Thanksgiving and make sure to remember the book fair starts when we get back from Thanksgiving break. Thanks for tuning to our podcast. This is Macy. And this is Cece. Have a great week.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. That was awesome. That was amazing.
So they're on iTunes. Go search AGS and podcast and you'll find it. You can subscribe. They'll let you know every time there's a new episode.
Pretty cool.
I can't believe how well they all spoke, and they were so informative. That was very fun. Thank you, guys. It's a regular consensus that the board's favorite moment of every meeting is getting a chance to see what our students are doing, because that's why we're all here. So we really appreciate your guys' willingness to come out and share with us, because we can't be in every building. So, all right. Now I'm going to cry. I'm going to go to comments now, and as we mentioned, we're going to start with board member committee updates. So any board members that wanted, we'll just start at Susan, and if she's got any updates to the committees that she sits on, she can share that now.
I just would like to mention about, I'm a member of BV, Batavia Foundation for Educational Excellence, and this year we've changed the way we are doing the grants for the foundation grants. In the past, the foundation has granted teachers, there have been the traditional fall grants that have been the small grants, and then the spring grants that have been a larger grant. And this coming year, you may have, as a teacher, may have realized it wasn't fall grants. The available funds are being split 3 ways. The district is doing what's called an innovation grant, and I don't know, Brad, if you want to talk a little bit, or not mention it at all, I don't know, is getting 25% of the available funds to do, it's a STEM.
Yeah, so we looked at issues that the district is facing that we could partner with the foundation on, and we decided on looking at females in STEM careers, and then looking at our course selections and our course opportunities. We see that gap starts in middle school. So we start to see girls not entering into STEM-related options that we have at our middle school, and we see that gap further widen at our high school. This mirrors national trends, and we want to make sure that we're giving kids all of the opportunities possible. So we're looking largely at STEM and making sure that our kids have experiences early and often in STEM fields so that they can see if that's something that would be for them. So we're working with our staff in a number of different areas to promote STEM education, especially for the girls in our system.
So that'll be 25% of the available funds. 70% of the available funds will then be given to teachers in the form of grants that have traditionally been like fall, spring, but will only be done in the spring. And you'll be hearing more about this through your own schools. And then there's 5% that we're reserving for what we call like miscellaneous community type things, where it'll be things like maybe post-prom, I think we've given some money to in the past, and things like that that are just more like a recurring thing that not necessarily considered like a grant type situation. So, but you'll be hearing more about that. So I just wanted to update in case teachers are wondering why there's been no news about grants or anything like that. You'll hear more about that to come. So that's
awesome. Thanks, Joe.
You do that. And I don't know, John, were you going to talk about Hall of Honor nominations? No.
I can if you want. I mean, February 1st is the deadline for the new nominations for the Hall of Honor. It's online, or you possibly get it paper-wise to fill out a form. And I would just look back at anybody that's been around in Batavia for a long time, if you know anybody that's gone on and has done a nice thing and is an alumni or someone that might not have been ever in Batavia as a student or anything, but has done a lot for the town of Batavia and for the kids here and so on, that you could nominate them and then it'll go for the committee. So that deadline is February 1st.
Sorry to skip over everything.
Oh, no, sorry.
We both sit on the same committee. I didn't know.
Great.
Yeah, I didn't know who was going to say.
Thanks, Jen. Chris.
Well, I'm on the Capital Improvement Committee, but I gave an update last month, and we have not had another meeting since then. However, I was the delegate at the assembly this weekend, and I can talk about that if you'd like.
Yeah, I would love to just look update on that. That would be great.
So this is my first year sitting on the IASB, which is the Illinois Association of School Board Delegate Assembly, which is the voting body which determines what the group tries to push in Springfield for the upcoming year, or what their agenda is. First they had the elections, and for president we elected the sitting vice president, and for vice president we elected the sitting treasurer, and they ran unopposed, so that wasn't very exciting. Then there were several resolutions which were presented to the assembly. First of which was there was a resolution to allow faculty to carry firearms in school. That failed to get enough votes to even have a discussion, so that is not going to be supported by the ISB. Next was a proposal to allow school districts to charge election commissions for any necessary security when they have voting in schools. That was actually pushed by Indian Prairie, who, I didn't realize this, but I believe they have 25 schools that are election sites. And so it actually is a big expense for them to keep their children safe. That one passed by 157 to 148, so it was a really close vote and exciting discussion. Next up was a 1% sales tax by county. There are already 49 of the 101 counties that have a 1% sales tax in order to support capital improvements for school districts. That one, and this was an effort to just make it across the board at all counties. That one failed, so that is not something that the ISB will move towards. And the next one was about altering the Open Meetings Act so that schools who are partnering with another school district have more flexibility in their meetings. The proper paperwork was not filed for the petition, so that one did not happen. And then on the consent agenda were 4 quick items. There was asking the state to provide any scoring discrepancies for the park test, so that we know if there's any strange test scores going on and why. Then there was PTEL adjustments so that we can actually collect less than the PTEL and not be punished in future years. So they're going to try to do that. And then another one so that any state authorized charter schools will not take funding away from local school districts. And the last one is to modify bidding regulations so that currently if you make any upgrades for technology or energy savings, you are able to actually solicit a bid without, or you can actually do the work without soliciting a bid. So they want to modify that so that bids are required just as all other work, which actually could have affected us because I believe that we did our lighting upgrade without soliciting a bid. So that is a quick update.
And that is all of the legislation that the ISB will be supporting or not supporting?
Well, that is all the new stuff that they added, so anything that was on
Already
there,
on there.
they will keep pushing.
Excellent, thank you. I think sometimes that we are not as well informed, and I knew you'd be the right person to keep us informed. So thanks, Beth.
Always exciting stuff.
We thrive on that, always. Tina, did you have any updates?
I do not have that many updates. I sit on PLAC, which is the Professional Learning Committee with Steve Pierce. That committee is always looking to help our staff become even more awesome than they already are. So we are working, great people serve on that committee, always looking for ways to help our staff and educate themselves. I think the big thing is the new thing that's been happening at the end of last year and this year has been the Twitter chats among staff, and I think that's starting to take off, and more staff are becoming techies, tech savvy, and doing Twitter chats at home and learning while they're sitting on their couch, which is great. So that's about it.
Awesome. I sit on the curriculum committee, the Curriculum and Assessment Advisory Committee, and I think that our most exciting thing that's coming up is we are going to be hearing from the early childhood group very soon with the first ever aligned curriculum. So that's probably the most exciting thing that we have coming up, and they'll be talking to CAC first, and then they will be coming to the board. So super excited about that. John.
Stipend committee met for the second time. The board had allowed $20,000 in new money under this contract to be awarded. So we established 5 new elementary stipends, 3 middle school stipends, and 12 high school stipends. We didn't spend all the money, and the remainder will push to next year. Didn't go away. And there seems to be very good concerted commitment to do the hard work we need to do this year to revise things and move ahead. So
Awesome.
we've made a good start.
Thanks, John. Jen Gasper, you tell us about how honored you are doing the updates.
Nope.
All right, Dr. Hinton, you had one I skipped over. I left you for that.
Yeah, great. I was going to say it at the end, but I'm glad we have an audience here because we are soliciting members for our facilities committee. So the board has authorized us to go ahead with the facilities committee with the goal of coming up to a 5 to 10 year facilities plan for the district. And we need voices from the community. So we're looking for about 8 to 10 members from the community at large. This is a great opportunity for you to make a difference for the district through your service. The committee will meet on Tuesday evenings, maybe 1 to 2 times per month. And it is a short-term committee. Once this plan is put into place, the 5 to 10 year long-range plan, then that is the conclusion of the committee. So it's not a lifetime commitment, but we really can use your help. And if you know of someone who you think would be a good fit, if it's not you, we would love for you to send them an email and direct them to our website. You guys could also go to our website and nominate yourself. It's just a short form about your name, a little bit about your background. It would just take a minute or two to fill out, and we're looking for that commitment to help make this district facilities to help match what the district is looking for their school system. So this is a big deal, and we look forward to having community members give their voice to us in this way. And staff as well. There's 8 to 10 staff spots.
Yeah, so it's a great committee. Tonight, we do not have any of our partners with us tonight, but we do have Chris here, student ambassador.
Yeah, so last time we met, we were getting ready to meet with the principal student advisory team to discuss like what we wanted to focus on for the upcoming year. And we met again and went over it, and we decided our 2 main things is we're going to have a big elementary school focus. So we're constantly going to take trips to all the elementary schools and meet with the kids and see how we can help in any way, shape, or form. And then also we're going to take on Yellow Ribbon Week, which was previously done by a club that no longer exists at our school, but we didn't just want to get rid of the idea, which is Suicide Awareness Week. So we're going to take that up as principal student advisory team and kind of run that whole thing. And we've got ideas that we're going to put in place for that week, and I think we're going to do that in January, so that's coming up. Also, leaders around our school met at an Upstate 8 conference gathering, and I think it was just, I did not attend, but I think it was just a big meeting where we kind of got to bounce ideas off of one another and see what was working well for some schools and what wasn't working well, and kind of just putting all our brains together to see how we could really advance all of our schools. And I talked to someone who attended, and they said that it was really successful and that they have a lot of great ideas coming for next year, especially in student council, like leadership and stuff like that. They said that they have a lot of new ideas that they're going to be putting into place as we move on to next year. Also, we had the juniors go to a mental health awareness presentation, which was really successful, and it focused on anxiety and depression, and it made sure that kids were aware of various ways to cope with mental health and anything else that they may be going through. Overall, I think it was really beneficial. The speaker was great, and it was really informative, so that was really good. And then with Link Crew, we're kind of turning that whole thing over. This was the first year that we had done it, so our sponsors, Mrs. Thomas, Mrs. Gages, and Mrs. McEwen, were kind of going strictly by the book, and we were kind of doing exactly what they told us to. And we noticed flaws in the program. Well, not necessarily flaws, but we felt that there's a way that it could be done better. So they selected 20 Link Crew commissioners for next year, which I was lucky enough to be selected. And us commissioners went on a retreat to Naperville North High School, where we met with 8 other schools that participated with Link Crew. And kind of the same thing as the Upstate 8 conference gathering. We just bounced ideas off of each other, like how it's ran, various things like that, and tried to come up with a better model of helping the kids as much as possible, which was extremely successful because we saw that these schools that have been in the program a little bit longer than us, they had made little tweaks to the whole program. And we were able to build off of those, and we had a long meeting when we got back to the school and kind of went over what we wanted to discuss. And for next year, it's going to look a lot different. So we don't think that it's going to be as strictly group by group by group, little activities like that. It's going to be more overview, personalized, like what they need and how we can accommodate to that. And we're thinking that we're gonna do it during lunches more next year to make sure that we have a better attendance and more kids are coming. And I believe that we are gonna start testing that out for second semester. So originally it was just gonna be a first semester program where we met with them once a month, and then it kind of whizzled away as they were getting used to high school. But now I believe that we're gonna try this out for second semester, kind of get used to the new model and see how it works out, and then we'll tweak it for next year. But other than that, as everybody in this room knows, we are going to state, which is super exciting at our school. So kind of how this week is gonna look. Tickets have been on sale for us Monday and Tuesday during our lunches. On Wednesday, there's tickets available from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the basketball ticket tables in the BHS Fieldhouse hallway, right by the Fieldhouse. And then also, they're selling tickets on Thursday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And on that Thursday at 8 a.m. is you can go and watch the football team practice early in the morning. And I believe that they're going to be doing a team scrimmage, which should be interesting to watch. And then later, from 10 to 11, is the Alumni Turkey Bowl. So all the alumni is coming back, and they're just going to have a game. And then on Saturday is the big game. So there's a send-off for all community members, and they're leaving at 1 p.m. from the high school. And then the game starts at 4 p.m. at NIU. So we're looking to bring a lot of people in, as we did last time we made it to state, and hopefully pack the stands at NIU.
I have my tickets already.
Awesome, so exciting. I do apologize, I meant to double check. I didn't see any pink sheets, but was there anybody in the audience that wanted to address during normal public comments? All right, did not mean to skip over asking for that again. Then I'm really excited to invite members of the Batavia Historical Society are here to share with us their plans for the Depot Museum expansion. So come right up to the table so we can get you on the microphone. Thank you.
At the table, huh? Thank you, special table.
That way she can film you and we can all hear you, and then everybody, an amazingly large number of people watch us on BATV. So we want to get you the best.
Also, I wasn't nervous, but now.
You look great on film.
President Dremel, Superintendent Hitchens, members of the school board, and the administration, thank you for giving us an opportunity tonight to update you as to where we are on the Depot Museum expansion. Earlier in the summer, we had an opportunity to meet with the superintendent and staff to lay out what our plans were and to emphasize how important the relationship has been between the Depot Museum, particularly with the third grade curriculum, with high school students doing research through our facility, through students who have graduated from Batavia High School, have come back and begun careers in the museum field and beyond. So we really believe that the expansion that we're working on right now is critical for a number of reasons. One, we have a lot of history in this town, and we're going to add to it when those Bulldogs bring home another state trophy. So you're going to get to see that, and hopefully we'll be able to display that down there at some point. We're out of space in our facility, and we just don't have a lot of good areas for research and classroom. So earlier this year, as I mentioned, we talked about that with the staff and the superintendent. And this is our newly revised website. We highly encourage you. We have a wonderful 10-minute video that you can watch. We didn't have time tonight for that, but it's at BataviaHistoricalSociety.org. Joe Yeagle, who I know many of you know, is an important member of the administration here, for a number of years. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end. Tony Winter will pick up from when I leave off here in a second to talk about that relationship between the Batavia Historical Society, the Depot Museum, and the Batavia School District. So again, thank you for allowing us a few minutes to discuss our plans. And we've got some new exciting plans coming up in a couple of weeks. We had an original set of drawings, and we're just going to receive our updated schematic drawings, which will really be impressive. So people now will be able to see what it will really look like.
Thank you, Dan. And thank you to the board for giving us a few minutes. As Dan said, I do want to kind of focus on the relationship that is in place between the museum and the school district. You know, that relationship goes back quite a way. In fact, it's probably been a pretty strong relationship ever since about the inception of the museum. You know, the museum can be a very valuable resource for the faculty and for students of all ages within the district. The most visible part of the relationship, as Dan has already mentioned, is the third grade tours. Every year, over 400 third grade students visit the museum to collect data that they need in order to complete their Batavia reports. Batavia history is very important if you're growing up here, and we're happy to provide that service. But our relationship goes beyond and into other students. High school students have volunteered as docents at the museum. They've been hired during the summer when the museum extends their hours. They come on and work as paid docents or volunteers, not paid volunteers. Multiple graduates have interned at the museum as they pursue their history degrees. And the museum provides assistance to the high school's advanced placement history class. So a lot of good going on there, but there's more. We periodically showcase the schools through either history or sports exhibits. We're proud of our school's achievements. We do, and anything we can do to highlight those whenever possible, we will. Many Batavia High School photography students have had their photographs displayed at the museum, and they've kind of learned what it's like to experience the excitement of a gallery opening as we open it up that first day of their display. The history of high school sports in Batavia has been displayed many times. As Dan has already mentioned, we hope we'll have an updated display pretty soon. And we have many school district artifacts on display, including this really cool pneumatic clock that used to keep time for the entire district. It's really pretty cool. But as Dan also mentioned, we're at a critical point. The community has generously been donating artifacts and memorabilia to the point where we're out of space. And without expanding, we're going to be hard pressed to continue to put together informative and relevant displays and exhibits at the museum. So as we evolve, as Batavia evolves, we want to continue to evolve along with the community. So not only be able to tell what today's history, or what our current history is all about, but we also need to make sure that we're prepared for today's stories that will become tomorrow's history. So we've embarked on this expansion campaign that if it's successful, we're going to more than double the space of the museum. And that means a lot of cool things. There's going to be new permanent and rotating exhibit space, so we can tell more about Batavia history and prepare for new history. It's going to be a large exhibition hall that can not only be used for special events, but can house traveling exhibits that would come through town. We don't have the space for that now. How cool would it be to be able to go to the Batavia Depot Museum and see an exhibit that's on loan from the Smithsonian Institute or a similar museum? That can all happen with this expansion plan. In addition to the larger facility, meaning we can be open additional hours than we are now. Maybe we'll even be able to be open year-round for a change. That would be kind of cool to have year-round access to the museum. There'll be more volunteer opportunities. There'll be more interning opportunities. There'll be more job opportunities as we staff the expanded museum and prepare for extended hours. So we're going to ask your support. We ask that you continue to support our campaign as we go through the coming years. We value the relationship with District 101. We certainly value the past relationship, and we look forward to growing that relationship with the district. Finally, before I turn it over to Joe, I want to invite the board to schedule a private tour of the museum. We'd like to meet you there. We'll take you through the museum. We'll kind of help you experience what some of the third graders experience when they come through. But there is a lot of good things there at the museum, and we'd be happy to host a private tour for the board. And I did notice a couple people look at each other when I mentioned that pneumatic clock. So I know that there was a lot there for you guys to see. And with that, I want to turn it over to Joe.
And we're just about out of time. In fact, we're probably a little bit more than out of time. And being a former administrator and going 20 years to board meetings, and by the way, I didn't miss a one in 20 years. I want you to know that. I know how precious your time is, and we do thank you very much for listening to us this evening. I would just like to draw your attention very quickly to the packets that were given to you. As Dan has mentioned, probably the most timely event that we have coming up is Light Up the Caboose. And you know, we have every year we have the Celebration of Lights, and that's coming up on the 26th. And leading up to that is our campaign where you and the community, anybody, can give us a little money and buy a light, you know, which we will commemorate with a little sign in the depot to help us raise money. And other than that, the other information that is in there is basically a lot of things Dan has already mentioned, Tony has certainly mentioned to you. I just wanted to bring your attention to that and very quickly say a very sincere thank you. We do appreciate your time very much. We know how precious that is. And more importantly than all right now, go Bulldogs.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you very much.
All right, that was exciting. The next item on our agenda is our consent agenda, which is a method of streamlining our meetings by taking one vote on a number of routine personnel and business items. And each of those items is detailed in the agenda and is posted in the board packets. Are there any items for removal or clarification before we start? All right, then Steve, will you please take us through the consent agenda?
Absolutely. 5.1 through 5.3 is the approval of the October 17th, 2017 special, regular, and closed session meeting minutes. 5.4 is our personnel report. I do want to make one comment on that. I was told by Dr. Hitchens that multiple people asked her about the title confidential secretary. It's kind of ironic because Brad can attest to this. Tony and I were recently discussing the titles of our district office personnel, and really what the confidential secretary position is it's really any district office, RJAC, or our operations secretary, because they deal with confidential matters with both staff, with payroll, etc. So it's kind of a blanket statement, but potentially we may be adjusting some job titles. We just recently had that discussion. So that would account for why we had the term confidential secretary listed next to Lisa's name. 5.5 is our payroll and bills. 5.6, destruction of closed session minutes from May 24th, 2016. You'll notice in 5.7 we had 3 separate donations made. We had 2 sizable donations made for social emotional learning at RMS and at BHS. One from Batavia Rotary and the other from the Batavia United Way. And then lastly, we had a donation of a piano for the music practice rooms at the high school from Margaret Carlson. 5.8 is the purchase of new maintenance trucks, and 5.9 is the overnight trip approval for our Wind Symphony to Peoria, Illinois. And we close up with 5.10, which is the actual approval of the just read consent agenda.
Awesome, thanks, Steve. Does anybody have any questions about items on the consent agenda? I know that we all obviously had questions about the one title. Any others?
I just have a question about the trucks. And I know Mark is in here.
You can ask me.
Okay. What happens to the old trucks?
So right now, they're worth very, very little, and they are going to hold on to them because in the summer they do have the need for more vehicles as they increase their staff. We add summer staff, and the maintenance team does travel more over the summer, so they'll hold on to them as long as they can. But then there might be 1 or 2 that might be worth a little bit more that they're looking into selling and putting that money back into that budget to help offset the cost.
Any other questions? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Lowe, second by Lack. Kathy, could you please call the roll?
Wakely. Yes. Drummond.
Yes.
Dryden.
Aye.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.
All right, consent agenda passes. Dr. Hitchens, we move on to the reports portion of our agenda.
So the reports, there are no votes of the board during this part of the agenda, but there's information that you need to know. The first is a recurring report, which are the FOIA requests. And in our second most popular question from board members for the week, people want to know, like, what is that FOIA about the communications manager? And when it comes to FOIAs, people request information and we don't always, we really don't ask because they just have the right to request it and we don't have to, and we don't really need to know why they're asking. Sometimes they share that information, but we just need to know that we might never know why that person asked that question. And that's the case with that particular one. And a lot of these, probably almost all those FOIAs are just blanket FOIAs to many districts, not just us.
It's just because Sue does such a great job.
I know. I think people were
They were
worried.
just really, it was like, who is that person?
So that was our second
dare they
most
question.
frequently asked question of the week was, what's up with the FOIA? So we just don't know. And that's mostly the answer you'll get about FOIAs from us because we don't really know unless they share with us. Treasurer's report or FOIA, any questions with those?
Other than the one about Sue now.
Then I'll turn it over to Brad, who has your final 3 reports of the evening.
Report mania. So the first report there is, I'm not asking for your approval on this, but this would come back based on your feedback for next month because we would like to get the calendar approved for the next school year. So today is about discussion and your feedback because the board does dictate the calendar in our district. So my role in that is to facilitate the feedback process. So I seek feedback from a number of different stakeholders, including our neighboring districts, so that we're in alignment with them as much as possible, including West Aurora because of the STEM school alignment. We look at feedback from our staff and also feedback from our parents and students. So the parent and student feedback typically comes in arrears, so it's not something I can act on immediately. And there's often very little consistency in the feedback that I receive from the community about the calendar. Some people like things, some people don't like things. Oftentimes it's very contradictory information. So I try and discern what are the major themes, and my ultimate goal is small changes to the calendar are probably best. You know, consistency helps people with the calendar, but we like to get a timely calendar out to our public. So you can see that in the report, I met with school staff. We processed through some of the feedback, both parent feedback and then also feedback that we get from our general community about our calendar to prepare for you, the board, draft number 1 of the 2018-2019 school calendar. The 2018-19 school calendar should look pretty familiar because it's mostly a rollover of our current calendar. One of the things that we discussed and played around with was this week of school because our neighboring districts have typically parent-teacher conferences, which to me is very late, and then institute days during this week on Monday and Tuesday. Our attendance is not significantly negatively affected on these days. Jake does a field trip, so he gets really good attendance today because the kids want to go to the Museum of Science and Industry. So our attendance goes down about 2% at the elementary level, so it's pretty insignificant. A little bit more at the middle school, and then our high school, whenever you have a short week, they're most impacted. So it's about a 90% attendance rate at the high school. So this is the 2018-19 school calendar, and I would take any feedback that you have for me or answer any questions.
You know, Brad, the burning question is always the start date. I mean, just to get it on record and, since we're at a, public meeting, why do we start? I know there's a lot of reasons, but I just think it's always great to say again why we do, why we start. Articulate it this way.
Yeah, so we run a collegiate calendar, which means that we finish our high school finals by Christmas break. And because we're on a block schedule, it's very, very helpful to finish because, when John and I were teachers there and Lisa, we would go on Christmas break and then come back and kids were literally done with the class, but we had 2 weeks with them and it was not the best use of time. So it's better, especially on a block schedule, to make that break because it's 2 separate years that we're going through. So we run a collegiate calendar, just like a college schedule. So finishing before winter break or Christmas break is really important. And that means that we have to have like an equal number of days on both sides of that winter break. So It does force us to start a little bit earlier, although about 80% of school districts start in Illinois around that time. It's not any earlier than we've typically done, so it falls within that week. But that is something that I get to as
It's
well.
always the question.
Yep.
And again, the feedback about doing finals prior to break is just great feedback.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many students that would change
That is
it.
the most consistent
Yeah.
piece of feedback that I get about the calendar is that they love the finals before
Right.
break.
I think it's difficult to understand if you don't have high schoolers, and that's just
Right.
the reality of being in a unit district. But I think as soon as families get to the high school, they're very appreciative, regardless of who wouldn't love a whole week off at Thanksgiving. But I think this calendar, and I do very much appreciate, and I think our families appreciate the grouping of days off, so that we don't have odd days off in the middle. It's a very family-friendly calendar in terms of days off.
Long weekends if needed.
The parent feedback that was consistent, and again, you get some differing opinions, but there were too many short weeks in the beginning of the school year. It's good to do that soft start, but we have 2 full weeks there, and then we have a little bit of time off. So that was in response to some parent feedback about that. And then we eliminated 1 half day. Those are hard for parents with childcare needs, so there's 1 less school improvement day. So those are some of the changes that we did in response to parent feedback, but it also gives us time with our staff, which is very valuable for us, especially in the beginning of the year and balancing those institute days.
And Brad, when do you foresee bringing this back for actual approval?
Next month.
All right.
I would just have, if you give me just a second.
Mhm.
You seem to be suggesting that it might be better in the future to take the entire week off of Thanksgiving.
It aligns, yes, that's one of the things we looked at, and we were swapping days, and it took us about an hour, and we kind of said maybe that's for another time. It's not because of attendance reasons, but because 2-day weeks are really hard to get into a learning groove.
Yes.
So like as in a learning situation, 2 days is not ideal. Is it
Yes.
impossible? No. Does learning happen? Yes. But is it as effective as possible? Probably not. So we're looking at ways that we can maybe have that full week off in the future, but still have that equal number of days.
Okay, keep the balance and get the start time on. All right.
And not start August 1st.
Certainly
Not
makes
until,
sense to me.
none of those changes would happen for the next calendar.
For
we're
18,
looking at.
they would be 19.
The hard work next year, yeah. I agree with this, the slow changes too. That seems less shocking to everyone's systems. Awesome.
My only thing is on the February one, you're breaking up 3 weeks with a 4-day, a 4-day, and a 3-day, or a 3.5 day.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't you just put the 15th Institute Day with the 19th? And just have at least 1 full week and then break up only 2 weeks?
Right, we talked about that with the group. February is a very difficult time for our students. It's kind of a rough social emotional time, so we thought that having the broken up weeks there was strategic in the fact that that is typically when we see higher instances of social emotional concerns. You're kind of in the darkest days of winter there. It's not the best time in school, so we thought breaking that up strategically, giving that long President's Day weekend, hopefully people could rejuvenate and come back. And then we do use the 28th this time, and the 1st, we use that as a day and a half of training for our staff, because the 1st is the County Institute Day, and we actually do training with staff that's a day and a half, so we need that big chunk there.
I do too. I think it's really thoughtful, and I agree about the February. That's a good question. John, thanks, Beth.
Same with February 20.
More calendar questions? All right.
Thanks, Brad.
The next report is an annual monitoring report about Title I. The board receives about 3% of its budget from the federal government, which is a very small amount. But most of that goes towards special education, but then a portion of it goes towards Title I. Title I is based off of low-income students, the proportion of low-income students within a school, but its actual mission is to target at-risk students. So it's calculated one way, but its mission is something else. So we have schools within the district, H.C. Storm, Hoover Wood, J.B. Nelson, this year Louise White, and Rotolo Middle School that qualified. They have higher than district average percentages of poverty in them. So those are Title I schools. AGS, Grace McWayne, and the high school don't meet those thresholds. There's about 6 ways to calculate Title I within your grant, but those are Title I schools. You can kind of see this year's proportion of low-income students. There's a lot more direct certified students, so we do get a better way of capturing them now than we used to, when parents had to apply for free and reduced lunch in order to start receiving those services. So there's a little bit more efficiency in our system of identifying families in need. We use, in Batavia, our title dollars mostly for people. And this was problematic because the state of Illinois, in order to fix the pension system, basically there was a surcharge, a TRS surcharge on pensions for anyone who was employed with grant funds. And that made its way up to about 50%. So if I wanted to pay a parapro or a teacher, or, somebody out of the grant to help our at-risk students, I paid a 50% surcharge on them in the form of pension. But the legislature reduced that this year for the first time in a long time, so it's now back to its normal rate of about 10%. So this really helps us better serve our schools, because we don't need things, we need people, and that's what we use our title funds for almost exclusively.
So are the change in the numbers from last year to this year, are you suggesting the demographic hasn't changed so much as our accuracy in reporting it?
Accuracy in reporting has gotten better over the years because we have direct certify now, so people who are receiving other services automatically qualify, so we get a list of those names now. We saw during the bad economy quite an upsurge, but that's leveled off and is kind of floating down just a little bit. Any questions about Title I?
No, good report, thank you, Brandon.
And then the annual school report card, those came out at the end of October, so it's been a few weeks here, and there was a flurry of newspaper articles about the school report cards. I put a direct link in there to the Illinois report card. The site itself has been improved over the years and is very user-friendly. There's lots of data. We report lots of things to the state of Illinois, and you can see a lot of those things reported in the school report cards. I highlighted in the report, and I'll say it here so that the board can hear it, is that, if you look at our report card and you compare us to our neighboring district and our benchmark districts, we look very favorable. We really hang in there with our benchmark districts. One area where you do see discrepancy is in the percent of students who complete algebra while in middle school. In Batavia, we have, because of the block schedule, back in the 90s when we went to that, 95 I think?
Something, yeah.
When we went to that, someone who was very wise, actually, because this really helps sustain our math scores over time, took a 2 algebra course sequence. At a traditional high school, you have Algebra 1, then you take geometry typically, and then you take Algebra 2, or advanced algebra. In Batavia, you take Algebra 1, intermediate algebra, geometry, and then advanced algebra. So that 2-course sequence gets split into 3, which allows us the depth of understanding of algebra, which is a major gatekeeper to post-secondary education. So kudos to whoever came up with that, but that was a good thing for Batavia because we continue to be very competitive in mathematics, and probably would not so if we didn't have that 3-course sequence. So we only count kids as finishing algebra. The way that we've defined it to the state are those students who in middle school take intermediate algebra, because that's them taking all of Algebra 1. So we have a very small percentage of our students who do that. It's Math 3, called Math 3 at our middle school. So it makes us look different than our peers. We also don't think there's a huge race to get kids through algebra, because on a block schedule, even if you start in basic algebra at the high school level, you can make it through AP Calculus 2 because you can double up in mathematics. So there's not really a race in Batavia to make it through algebra. There's lots of research that shows that is kind of a gatekeeper, but it's also, there's research that shows that some students may not be developmentally ready to learn algebra, which is a pretty esoteric and abstract concept. So that is where we're a little bit different. I also posted in the report for you some of our internal metrics. Whenever I talk to newspaper reporters about the school report card, I can't make a big deal out of it because it's a one-time thing. It doesn't really tell me a lot. If it guided my work, I wouldn't be doing my job. So we use our internal metrics to guide our work. And what we're seeing, kind of the story to me with our internal metrics, is that we always have work to do, but we're seeing small incremental growth. So all of the magic bullets, all of the special programs, that is not work that we're doing. We're doing the hard work of teaching and learning. So what you would expect to see is some ups and downs, but small incremental growth, which is what I would want to see for our district. And we are seeing some of those results overall and at our different grade levels. So our internal metrics help me to decide where we need supports and what we need supports in, and to guide those resources to those areas. But that is how we use our internal metrics. So the external metrics of PSAE, SAT, all of that has changed pretty radically over the past couple of years and is very one shot and doesn't really help us do our jobs here in school of continuous improvement.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that we are very comfortable saying we're not in a race to get our kids through algebra, because I don't think we're doing them any favors. I am a strong supporter of our math program here in Batavia. I think we do an amazing job of educating our students in mathematics, and I'm glad that we have the confidence to continue doing what we know has been working for them. Questions on this? All right, that is all of the items on our agenda except any final ending comments. So we started with Sue. John, we'll start with you for any final comments.
I just want to say it was great to have the celebrations as usual. I want to thank Lisa for our annual meeting and basically before board meetings to answer all my questions. And I forgot to respond to your note to me, but I did get it. Thank you. Thanks for all the reports. Very well done. Great job, guys. And unfortunately, I'll be heading out of town and will not be back in time for a football game. I came in last 4 years ago, I think it was, but this time we're not going to be able to make it. And so go Bulldogs and bring home that trophy. And have a safe and happy Thanksgiving for everyone.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Go Dogs.
Excellent. Tina?
Same thing. I mean, I think that's the thing. Such a great week to be a high school student and a Batavian, but happy Thanksgiving and what a fun weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to be fun.
I'm looking very much forward to this weekend also, not only because of the Bulldogs, but in 8A Loyola Academy, my alma mater, will also be playing for the state championship. So I will be there for 2 games in a row cheering for both teams.
That's fun.
You're going to be cold.
Invisible hand here. Sue?
Happy Thanksgiving to all, and have a safe weekend, and go Bulldogs.
Yeah.
So exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. So everyone, thank you again for your hard work. I'll bring it to you for your final comments.
To stay on message, happy Thanksgiving, go Bulldogs.
All right, and there is no, nothing
There
for
is
closed session?
There is a
Oh, I
closed session.
apologize, there is. So sorry. We are going to adjourn to closed session, but there's no action after.
There's no action, definitely.
There we go. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. No action will be taken. So moved by Locke, second by Blakely. Katie, would you please call the roll?
Blakely.
Yes.
Dryden.
Yes.
Gaspar.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.
Drummond.
Yes. All right. Again, there will be no action after we return from